Hello, Matthew Bell with Alzheimer'sProof.com, and today I want to go through 6 of the top drugs that are prescribed for Alzheimer's disease. Now let me be clear right from the outset. First of all, a disclaimer: I am not a medical researcher, I am not a physician, I am not any kind of healthcare practitioner. I don't have any special insights into these. These are just my own research, things that I have bumped into in virtue of the fact that my dad suffered from Alzheimer's disease for a decade. He passed in 2016, but my interest basically in communicating this information is just to kind of help other people shorten their own learning curve when they're trying to understand the disease that either is impacting them or one of their loved ones. Now just a word, when I say Alzheimer's drug, I want to be clear here. I am talking about those drugs that are used to treat cognitive deficits, memory deficits, various different symptoms of Alzheimer's directly. In other words, those things that are most associated with Alzheimer's in terms of brain function. It gets a little dicey here because, in fact, Alzheimer's disease can cause behavioral problems, mood problems, it can cause other kinds of physical symptoms, and those symptoms can also be addressed with pharmaceutical interventions. So maybe antidepressants, there might be sleep aids, there might be all different kinds of drugs that are used for a person who has Alzheimer's disease. But my concentration here is on those 6 drugs that, again, are going to be used to treat cognitive impairment and memory deficits directly. Now, there are really 3 basic classifications. The first classification of drug is going to be those that operate as acetylcholinesterase inhibiting drugs. Another class, which is quite separate, is going to be a class of drugs known as NMDA antagonists. The third class is an overlapping class. That's going to be the one that brings in an element of acetylcholinesterase inhibiting and NMDA antagonism. We have a class of drugs that inhibits acetylcholinesterase, one drug that operates as an NMDA antagonist, and it's basically operating on another neurotransmitter called glutamate, and then a third class of drug that basically combines the operation of the other 2. Now, what I'm concentrating on here are those drugs that have been approved by the FDA. So there are 6, but one of them is no longer in wide use. In fact, it has been discontinued, at least in the United States. That drug chemically is known as Tacrine. Its brand name was Cognex. Cognex was initially created by Shionogi, which is a Japanese pharmaceutical company. At one point, they were in league with Pfizer, distributing this Cognex. It was one of the earliest Alzheimer's drugs on the market. I think the earliest to actually be approved for acetylcholinesterase inhibition. But eventually it was discontinued, and one of the main reasons why apparently was because it tended to have an adverse effect on liver function. The first 4 drugs that I'm going to name are all acetylcholinesterase inhibitors. So first was Tacrine under the name Cognex. That again is no longer being prescribed. A second drug is known under the brand name Aricept, and its chemical name is Donepezil. It was developed by the company AChEI and has been sold in conjunction again with Pfizer. Aricept is prescribed for all stages of Alzheimer's disease. Now roughly, and I have an entire video just going into the various ways of understanding stages, you can find the link in the description, but Aricept can be prescribed for early, middle, or late stage Alzheimer's disease. And I'm going to stick with that tripartite division of Alzheimer's for the purpose of this video. Now, some of the common side effects in almost all of these drugs are going to be various gastrointestinal issues. That's going to primarily be diarrhea, nausea, and vomiting. But Aricept can also cause dizziness, it can cause sleep disturbances, and in some people it can cause muscle cramping. A second drug in circulation, the third drug that I'm naming here, also an acetylcholinesterase inhibitor, is Exelon. The chemical name is Rivastigmine. Exelon was developed by the company Novartis. It can be administered both orally and dermally, transdermally, that is to say through the skin in a patch form, or as capsules. Exelon is generally prescribed only for early and middle stages of Alzheimer's disease. It has some of the same possible side effects as the previous Aricept, namely gastrointestinal problems, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, as well as dizziness. The third acetylcholinesterase inhibiting drug that is being actively prescribed is known under 2 brand names, Reminyl and Razadyne, and its chemical name is galantamine. It was developed by the pharmaceutical company Janssen. Once again, possible side effects include gastrointestinal upset, diarrhea, vomiting, nausea, as well as dizziness. Now, all of these operate as acetylcholinesterase inhibiting drugs. That is, they inhibit the function of a neurochemical called acetylcholinesterase, and the job of acetylcholinesterase is to break down acetylcholine. One of the hypotheses for causation in Alzheimer's is a deficiency in acetylcholine. So the idea is if you can inhibit the acetylcholinesterase from breaking down acetylcholine, then you can boost the level of acetylcholine in the brain. I have a video where I kind of try and explain that just a little bit more. I can't go too far in depth, frankly, because it's beyond my understanding, but in that video I do include some graphics and other things that might help you to get a firmer handle on that. If you're interested, I'll put the link in the description as well. Now, a second entire classification of drug, actually presently it only has one member in it, but it is the NMDA antagonist. Now, in this case, the drug in question is called Namenda, and you can kind of see the NMDA as part of Namenda name. The chemical name is Memantine. This one was created by Forest Labs in conjunction with Allergan. Now, NMDA, of course, is an abbreviation. I'll put on the screen what it actually is an abbreviation for. I'll spare you my attempt to pronounce it. Its action is a bit complex. It's related to the neurotransmitter glutamate, the action of these NMDA antagonists. And the best way that I can understand it, and the way that I kind of think that it functions apparently from my reading, is that glutamate is one of those neurotransmitters that binds to the nerve cell. And in binding to the nerve cell, it allows calcium to enter into the nerve cell. Now, apparently, this entry of calcium into the nerve cell is one of the things that helps in the formation of memories. However, in the brain of a person who has Alzheimer's disease, among the deficits, and we already talked about low acetylcholine, we've mentioned plaques and tangles, there are many other things that are different about the brain chemistry of a person with Alzheimer's, but apparently one of the things researchers are thinking happens in the brain of a person with Alzheimer's is that they have this excess of NMDA, or it's overactive, so that it allows too much calcium into the brain cells, into the neurons, and that excess calcium can actually cause neuronal death, nerve cell destruction, and other things that are not at all good for the brain's health. So the idea behind the NMDA antagonist chemical, Namenda, or Memantine, is that it is going to sort of block this action of the neurotransmitter so that the calcium is inhibited from going into the nerve cell, and hopefully it will prevent nerve damage. That's the idea, at least the best that I understand. Now, whereas Exelon and Razadyne were prescribed for early to middle stage Alzheimer's, and again, Aricept is prescribed for all stages, but in this case, Namenda is actually prescribed for middle to late stage Alzheimer's disease. Namenda's side effects also include gastrointestinal distress, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, as well as joint pain. Also, by Forest Labs and Allergan is an attempt to combine the two classifications that we've just canvassed. So the acetylcholinesterase inhibiting drugs and the NMDA antagonist, Namenda, there has been an attempt to combine them, and the drug that has been created, its brand name is Namzaric. Namzaric is a combination of Donepezil, that is the chemical that is sold under the brand name Aricept, as well as Memantine, which is the chemical sold under the brand name Namenda. So this combination of Donepezil and Memantine has been sold as Namzaric, and it is touted as a composite, essentially, of two proven Alzheimer's treatments. One that counteracts acetylcholinesterase, and the other that's designed to prevent glutamate, again, from getting into the nerve cells and causing nerve death. Namzaric's side effects are a little bit more severe. Not only do you have gastrointestinal distress, potentially, diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, but you also have the dizziness. Many people have headaches. Namzaric can apparently cause people to have a predisposition for ulcers, can make ulcers more likely. It also has the potential to interfere with various anesthetics, so you have to be conscious of that when or if a person with Alzheimer's on this drug is going to have to go under for surgery. It can also cause certain heart difficulties, including a slowed heart rate, as well as chest pains, And one of the more serious that I noticed on that one is that it can actually is implicated in various seizure episodes. Typically, however, when you read about these drugs on various websites like drugs.com and others, you find the statement that if the doctor prescribes it for you, you should be aware that your doctor is theoretically aware of these side effects and has judged that the side effects are outweighed by the potential good that can be served in the use that he or she is prescribing this medication for. In other words, the various websites that introduce you to these side effects want you to understand that even though there are side effects, sometimes serious, that your doctor is aware of these and that your doctor, at least in theory, believes that the potential good of the drug is going to outweigh the potential bad or harm. But once again, this video is not intended for any kind of medical advice. It's not diagnosing anything, treating anything. I cannot recommend these treatments to you. I'm not endorsing anything. This is for general informational or entertainment purposes only. If you need specific recommendations and help, you need to consult with a licensed medical practitioner in your area, somebody who's familiar with your own medical history, and so on. Now, a final thing that I'll say about these drugs is that they are all overtly attempts to treat various symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. There are really no good reasons, no good grounds for thinking that these drugs are able to address various causes of Alzheimer's disease, nor is it the case that they are to be construed as cures. At best, they simply delay the worsening of various symptoms, but at the end of the day, there really is no effective intervention for Alzheimer's in terms of a treatment. But if you found something of use in this video, if you found something interesting, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be alerted to new content as it becomes available. I thank you so much for being with me today. I wish you all the best with the various interventions that your doctors prescribe for you or your loved one, and I look forward to seeing you again in another video. Thank you.